So this is a very simple interface. It looks very familiar to our search engine and all that, but there are other interfaces of this as well. I'll just show in a minute, right? So I can just go and ask questions like this. Hey, show me the average storage cost by cloud provider, and then it just gives me the metric. Hey, I asked for all these are absolutely dynamics. If you really look at it, instead of cloud provider, I'm just looking at, hey, what else can I look at? I do have a data glossary. These are all the data elements I have. So I have a whole bunch of categories. Let me just use this, by component. Let me, so you end up, creating whatever the questions or whatever usage, how much of a data you have. You can just, I can even say this, hey, in, um, I think I may have the data for 2020, I guess. Yeah, here it is. So for the time interval that is available, on across any dimension, any measure, I have the flexibility to ask this question, and it's just going to get me the data. And then I have the ability to look at the granular details. I can download, I can do so many things. So that's the whole idea behind an interface like this, where we're just making it completely dynamic with an ability to ask questions, right? So there is a whole bunch of data sets, I may have. I can just pick any of these, switch the context to move to some other data set, and then just start asking questions in English. So we are just moving away from the concept of sticking to a rather specific set of metrics, and then and where each one of these additional metric or a need could become a project. We're just saying, hey, if users are different, their information needs are different, their questions are different. So why don't we just make it completely dynamic, right? I think that's the whole idea. So say this is again another example on vulnerabilities, right? So um, this whole thing, for you to build, it comes out of a low code application. Nothing, not even a single line of code, you have to write. So I can go and change it to a different visualization and whatnot. I can filter, and then say for example, it gives me a whole bunch of insights. Say now I can even show a trend. So here it says, this is the way we are talking about the vulnerabilities. It shows a trend of those vulnerabilities, and all these kind of, the metric comes out of the box based on whatever the questions you have. That's so. I'll just come back to this demo. We'll do a lot more. There are more variations to it, and I'll just come to that. But I just wanted to set the context. When we were talking about this, what exactly do we mean by conversational? That's pretty much it. And in the sense, rather than looking at preset metrics, why don't we just in pure language, and then when we talk about language, it also involves people refer to the same term in so many different ways. I mean, what I really mean by that is, say, in this case, so if I have, let me pick one category. So it's like model name. I can call it as, there is a whole bunch of synonyms you can define. I can call it as product model, device model, hardware model, whatever it is. Different users, the business users might refer to it differently. I can define a vocabulary, refer to the same name in so many different ways, and then still be able to get those answers. So when we talk about human conversations, definitely the vocabulary plays a big role. So all those abilities are all your features available within a solution like this as well, right? So that's at a very high level is what we really mean by this conversational AI solution. So see, I was just showing this example around, there is this I have this data. It's these are the attributes I have. It's like list of all the IT inventories. I have all the IT assets across by location to department, whatnot. I mean, all this data set I have, it's a very simple data. So here is a data element. Now, with this, there is a whole bunch of questions, I can ask, say, let me go here, start from scratch. So simple, the data glossary brings up like this. Hey, these are the different data elements. You can filter them by categories or numbers and all that. And as I said, the what you see below that, that is the vocabulary. So when I say, say for example, I can ask, let me show an example here. So show me by, so I'm just asking a very simple question. Hey, show me the total cost by department. I can refer to this by department, or I can even, I have synonyms called division. So I can even ask the same question by, it's still going to bring the same amount of information. So this is where this vocabulary kind of comes into play, how we really make the technical data, easily available for business people and all, it kind of solve this problem around data glossary, mapping your, the data elements to the business terms, right? You can, it's suddenly, you see that there is a new term, which you really want to do. All you have to do is using, you have to just go and add it here and define, and then Kia will start responding. Say for example, project name, I just want to call it a, so something. So even if I want to call it a sniffer, the next time it would understand and then, use that to answer the questions. That's the way Kia kind of, takes the synonym, and then, the language models get retrained, and then, it would have an ability to respond back with that, right? So that is, in terms of, say, so let me just ask you some more examples, right? So say, for example, I'm just doing an analysis on vulnerabilities. Hey, how there is a whole bunch of my IT assets, which I'm really trying to do, take care of these vulnerabilities, and then, so that I can put some patches based on, what kind of, so it's like I say that, hey, what, show me. So it's going to give me, hey, this is by count of assets. This is the number of vulnerabilities you have. I can say that, hey, what, can you just break it down by location, right? So it's going to say that, hey, that number, let me, okay. Okay, so it says, what, these are the vulnerabilities I have by different location. And say, for example, I have a presentation tomorrow, I mean, so even though it kind of responds back to these different questions, I have a presentation tomorrow where I really need to go and present this to someone, on the, how many vulnerabilities to have, what kind of measures we have taken, and which one is due, which one is critical, and all this, right? So I can say that, hey, what, rather than I start with some questions like this. It gives me by assets, it just says, hey, this many. So I can say that, hey, I'm really going to use this for a presentation. So I can say that, hey, let me go and create my, I'm just giving a story and say that, hey, so I add this, and then, I say that, hey, what, I'm also trying to find out by, I can say that, say, by device type, right? So I'm just going, what kind of, show me the vulnerabilities by device type, right? So it just splits it by software, and then, it's like, so I'm also going to add this to my story, right? So once I keep adding something like this, what I can do is, there is something called as a storyline. I also already created one, so I can go and play this as a storyboard, and then, I have a presentation here. The major difference is, unlike the way, we do static slides and all that here, it's like it is real-time data. When we are presenting, or rather, this data, it kind of, the data gets refreshed real time. And, it's like you also have an ability to, most of the time, when we present something like this, there is always this one question, which may not be there, which we normally either try to answer it differently or we call somebody. But at the same time, in Kia, when we do not definitely, using an application like this, You can also ask these when someone says that, hey, you know what, this is for this particular location. Can we also do a drill down by another dimension or look at a specific time frame, which is not covered in the presentation? Definitely all these kind of dynamic, the questions you would be able to answer, with an interface like this. I think that's the one key feature, in the sense, you're not just limited by dashboard or a metric, with a very, very small subset of the data. All the questions kind of, they get answered with the complete, or rather, whatever data set, Kia has at its disposal, right? So this is one interface, what we call as, it's the search interface. It's very, very simple, very similar to our, the popular search engines. It just brings back the frequently asked questions, the questions you asked, and then, you have this inbox where you have an ability to go back to the questions which you asked before, and then, you can come back, you can mark some of them as favorite, you can build your storylines and all this. This is one interface. The second one is what we call as, the chat interface. Let me quickly show you this. Okay, so you can see that, the interface is very similar to any of collaboration platforms, whether it is Slack, Teams, or chat or anything. And then, so let me go and bring the same questions I had. Say, for example, I have my cloud infrastructure storage usage here, right? So on this particular data set, I can say, hey, what? Let me start a new thread. I ask this question, hey, what? Show me the average storage cost by component, in the second half of 22. What I can also do is, since it is more of a chat interface, I can ask, how about since it is more of a conversational interface, it retains the context. We were just talking about the average storage cost by component. What we changed was only the timeline. It understands, even though I kind of used a pronoun and then, just change the year alone, it is able to still retain, hey, what, we're just still talking about the average cost by component, and then it just applied a different timeline to it. I think that's the idea behind, a chat interface like this. It's even here, it's absolutely, you can just you can have something like, hey, what percentage of our instances is Azure, and it just completely dynamic interface. And say for example, when I have let me give an example. So here, show me the project, with the least amount of storage costs, right? So it just says, I talked about least. It also makes some, it just gives me that information. Okay, what, this is the one, and right. What it also does is, there is a whole bunch of insights, it just brings into picture, right? I mean, say, if I say that, since we're talking about the least storage, you can also have it say, hey, by the way, would you be interested in looking at something which is the most number? So all these kind of suggestions, and then, the amount of insights it can bring in. Let me show you, just like, from this particular data set, I can go to, say, the one, which we just used, for the vulnerabilities or the infrastructure asset management. Even here, I can say that, hey, show me the, say, let me just say that by device type. Okay. So it just, hey, this is how much, there are close to 70,000 and then, it's like this. So you can go to an insight and then say, for example, you can look for, you can say that, hey, show me the trend of it. It is going to do a trend. Say, I say that, so it also gives me an option to break it down by different dimensions and all that. So, or say, for example, even if I go here, I can go and ask for a forecast. Now, it's just going to take me, you see this pink line? It also does these the advanced relatively advanced analytics in terms of we can do a forecast, it can tell you the contributing factors. There is a whole bunch of insights which just comes along with these questions, right? So what you see here, it just shows the trend, as well as it does a little bit of forecast based on the data points that's available and all that. The key thing here, one more, say I'm looking at a data set like this now. I really want to look at, hey, something doesn't make sense. So say, for example, I'm just switching to a monthly trend here. So and I see that, there is an issue. There is a dip somewhere here. I really need to bring in other people. What I can do is I have an option to invite other people to the conversation and, bring them into it. And then say, for example, the two of us now we can chat. It's like I can go and have a conversation with this person, say, and then, I can just talk to him, and then both of us look at the same data rather than the way we normally do it today, by taking a screenshot, sending it in an email and all that. Now, the interface, you can see it's kind of very similar to Twitter-like stuff, so both of us, we can now, he can say, hey, what, but this is why it is looking at it. I can create an action. Say, for example, I can just say that, hey, this is an action item for somebody to look on. So we use Notion. So similar, it can be any external application from within this application. You can bring in other users, have a conversation. You can create, or rather, do these integrations to the download any of those business applications. All of this can be, it's possible, within this whole application, right? So now we saw the Kia search, and then, this is the chat application. Let me just quickly show you the mobile version of it. Just give me 1 second. Let me cast my mobile app here. So this is the mobile version of the same application. Whatever, say the data sets, where we just asked, all these are completely omni-channel. So the history, the questions, the data sets, whatever it is, these are just shared across. So just like how we might be, say we are in a airport, or we are in a customer meeting, somebody is asking a question, rather than looking at other applications, definitely, we can just go and ask these questions. Hey, it's show me the Azure instance in you by payment structure. So it's just going to bring me the data, that particular question I have. It's taking a lot more than what I thought. Usually this is what happens. Things go wrong when there is a demo. Let me just do it again. Okay. It just brings that particular question, it kind of brings the data back. I can continue this. Yeah, I don't know if you were able to hear the voice. So it kind of responds back in voice as well. Say, I mean, I can just ask follow-up questions like this, and then, it just goes on. What percentage of instances are Azure pay-as-you-go? So even here, now, I just see that this is something I want to discuss with somebody. I can bring more people into the conversation. We can just chat. That's very similar to how we use any of the messaging app. We can do the same thing on data sets. So there is this whole bunch of data set, which I'm trained on, which I can use. Others, we can collaborate on data sets. I can create one, I can invite others, and then, collaborate. So all we have to do is just switch the context to a different data set, and then, just ask questions, right? I think that's the whole idea behind this, in the sense, without writing a code for any new metric, or rather, to have BI output, in the web, as well as, mobile platforms, or whatever it is. I think, you just have one low code interface. You train one data sets or n number of data sets. Now, you just have the ability to just ask these questions, stitch them together, into a storyboard. The shift is more towards, hey, you know what, rather than somebody pre-creating a dashboard, now, you have the ability for whoever the users are, they can ask questions, they can put together, stitch them into a storyboard, present it with others, or rather, from here you integrate with the other applications, you collaborate. All those kind of features are kind of, built within this, platform for data. I mean, that's at a very, very high level is notes. It's what the application key is supposed to be, right?